Hello everyone, let's get started on learning how to create this embossed metal project. Here are the materials you're going to need. 36 gauge aluminum tooling foil, copy paper, thin cardboard, wooden embossing tools, a soft surface to work on, multicolored Sharpies, a hole puncher and scissors, and finally ribbon. Your first step is to start with a thin piece of copy paper. Start your drawing by tracing a template in the center of the copy paper. That is the area that you will be drawing inside of. It's always nice to have a border for a metal tooling project. That can be easily done by putting the template back in place where you traced, then pulling the template into the rectangle slightly to mark an even border all the way around. So I completed my drawing on the inside of the border. One thing you want to do with this project is you do not want to make too many small little marks. Like if we were going to make some sort of design within this, these are way too tiny. So if you kind of made a lot of little tiny marks, this you do not want to do. Your designs need to be fairly large for this project. You want everything kind of to be spaced out a little bit. If things are too close, they're going to crunch together on the metal. One thing I do like is if you would like to have your name on this, your name could be printed on it. Just make sure that everything is very neatly done because this is your design. It will transfer over exactly. The next step after you have your design all done is to get your soft surface to work on. You're going to have your pencil and you are going to get your metal. Your metal should be down on that soft surface. You're going to put your design right on top of the metal. And it should be the same size as the paper. So you're just going to line it right up. Tape it right down so that it doesn't move on the top and on the bottom. Now you're going to trace over all of your lines. And sometimes it's easier to do this with a colored pencil or a color pen, like a blue pen or something like that. So what's going to happen is you're going to go over your entire design and you're going to see this imprint on the back side of it. One thing you want to remember is this is the front and you do want to trace slowly. If you go quick, you might have a tendency to kind of go off the line and it's not as easy to get out as you may think. Now, check to see if you have your design all traced by flipping it over on the back. Look at all of the areas and see if you have everything traced. If you do, now you're going to be using your tools. So again, you don't want to use any tools that are metal tipped tools. You want to use something that actually has, it's a wood tool that has some sort of rounding, and you might use a pointed wood tool for the front. So I'll show you how to go over this. On the back, you don't even have to take off your paper because sometimes what happens is you confuse the front and the back. Remember, the back is the side where you didn't have your paper and the lines are pushed up. Now you're going to use your tools and you are going to press in areas that are shapes. One thing you don't want to do is any large background spaces. So this is almost like you're coloring it. That's what I try to think about. It's almost like you're coloring. So any of these dots are going to be pushed in, and I'm using the opposite side of this tool. And you just kind of push in and you're going to see that indentation on there. Don't push too far. Now the only time where I might say to use a pointy tool like this is for something that's a little small, like that little dot. Okay, so I'm going to go over and I'm going to use my tool on all of the areas and push in all of the large spaces. It's kind of like I said, you're kind of coloring in all of the large spaces. If they're too small, you're not even going to want to push them out. And what happens is you're bound to go over some of those lines that should be pushed the opposite way that you traced on the front. And so we're going to have to take our drawing off of the front eventually, and we're going to go over the lines with the pointed wood tool on the front. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to just use my larger tool to kind of press out my elephant, which is a very big area. And if you see, I'm kind of using it like on its side a little bit more. I'm not pushing it down where it's straight up like this. You don't want to have lines in it, so I'm kind of using it at a pretty hard angle. And again, you don't want to go too high, and this is why you don't want a ton of little tiny details. So you're going to switch tools for certain things. Where I'm getting into the smaller areas, I'm going to switch tools. Now that I have the back all pressed out and finished, and remember, you don't press any of the background space out, just shapes and no lines. Now I'm going to take the front piece of paper off very carefully. And you can kind of see what it looks like. These areas are nice and raised, and that's going to look really nice when we do some of the coloring. And we're going to buff off a little bit. The next step is you're going to go over, and you can even use a pencil tip for this, but you're going to go over all of your original lines. You can use a pencil tip or you can use a wooden tool, but make sure that these lines are all pressed back in the front so that you can see your design very precisely. That's one thing that you want to make sure is that your design doesn't look like a mush. It should be very precise, and if it's not, you keep going over your original lines around everything. Now that I went over all of my original lines and I can see my design nice and clear, I am going to take the backing, cardboard backing, and I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to prepare the edges to be cut. So for this to wrap around, we're going to put our cardboard right up to the edge of where our design is. And we're going to make a little triangular piece right there. And it has to be right up to the edge of where the end of our design is. And that's an area that we're going to cut right there. So we're going to do that to each side. There we go. And we are going to need scissors for this part. So you're going to take your scissors and you will cut right on that line. Now be careful, these edges are all very sharp. Now it's time to color. You're going to pick your color scheme. I have 4 colors that I'm going to use. Decide. Some sort of color scheme is great. I've got these 4 colors that I'm going to use for mine. The other thing you're going to want is just a tissue, and possibly if you have a sanitizing wipe. So like an alcohol-based sanitizing wipe, just in case you make a little mistake, this can help you erase it. All right, now think about your color scheme. When I go to color, I'm going to do a small area at one time. Like I don't want to do a whole lot of space at once because I'm going to show you how I buff this. So I'll color this area. Now I'm going to take my tissue and I'm just going to buff very gently along that color. And you can kind of see how it appears. It looks like jewelry. It's a really cool technique to use. Now, can you just leave your design without buffing, your color without buffing? You can absolutely leave it without buffing. I get the color right into the divots and lines. Remember, only color small spaces at a time for this buffing technique. If a little part of your color starts to dry on you, all you have to do is color it over again with a Sharpie and quickly buff it off. Again, just concentrate on small parts at a time. I really like the way that the ink settles down into the lines. So let's say you've got a little bit of the ink where, well, the Sharpie, where you didn't want it to be. This is my sanitizing wipe, and I can press down on it, and it will basically take off some of it, if not all of it. So you can kind of see like you do have a little bit of control how this can be manipulated a little bit with your sanitizing wipe if you've got some outside on your design. And really, this can be done however you want it to be. Like I said, you can have the full color on there and leave it, or you can buff it. They're beautiful both ways. Now here is a finished piece. And you can see I used those 4 colors, and I did some solid areas, and I did some areas that have just kind of lines, and I buffed them out. Some people like to color the backgrounds. It's however you want to do it. On to the final step. You're finishing with a cardboard backing and a ribbon. You'll need to mark out 2 spots on each side of the cardboard equal distance to each other and about 1 inch from the top. Use a hole puncher to punch the holes, and then select your ribbon that goes well with the colors in your design. Put your name in the center of the back and string through your ribbon. Pull up the 2 sides and tie it off. There we go. Now this is going to be flipped over, and you are just going to make sure that the edges get wrapped right around and that it's on the right way. If your design hangs this way, make sure that your holes go here. And there is my wonderful little piece. Good luck, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.